All right, everybody, welcome to Speak Podcast, episode number 3. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, I'm always going to start the podcast like that because without our listeners, we are nothing. I'm very, very excited for our podcast today. We have a first for the Speak podcast. I'm happy that it's happening in episode 3. That means it's moving along quickly and we're reaching new avenues because today we have someone on that I have never met before. I don't know them. I was put in contact with them by a friend from school. And that's amazing. That just means that we're reaching new avenues. We're reaching, new pathways to talk to people and to get to know people other than just having people on that I know personally. So yeah, I'm really, really excited. This is an amazing person. I talked to her on the phone earlier this week. Her name is Carlye Maita. She is a former Division I lacrosse player at Villanova. So without further ado, I just want to get right into it because I'm really excited to talk to her. Just an amazing person who has a great story to tell. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm joined here by Carlye Maita. She's a former Division I lacrosse player at Villanova. Carlye, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that David connected us. I'm so grateful to be on this podcast, and what I think you're doing is absolutely amazing, and I'm just grateful to be a part of it.
Yep. Shout out to David Burkinski, my buddy from football. Great guy, and he put us in contact with each other. So he's the reason that this is happening. All right, Carlye. So I just want to start out by having you kind of introduce yourself to everybody listening, talk about growing up near Villanova, being that kind of having that be your family college, quote unquote, your adolescence. Just give us a quick introduction.
Sure. So I have been an athlete my entire life. I actually didn't start along with a lot of other people, but I know that it's normal to start playing lacrosse when you start walking. But that wasn't the case with me. I was a soccer player, and I also played basketball and softball, volleyball, whatever. But I was kind of like against lacrosse in a weird way because like everyone did it, and I just didn't want to follow the crowd. But senior year or freshman year of high school, a lot of my friends were trying out, and I decided, why not? All my friends are doing it. If I make it, great. If I don't, whatever. And I happened to make the varsity team as a freshman, and that was so crazy. And me and my parents were so shocked. Like, what is this coach thinking? But so although I didn't play, I sat on the sidelines and was able to watch a lot of people, amazing athletes who went on to play at UNC and Duke and UVA and USC. So just sitting back and watching was such a great way to understand the game for someone that had never played before. Yeah. So my family, a lot of people went to Villanova. My dad graduated in 85, and I had a couple of aunts and uncles and cousins that went there as well. So my dad would take my family. I have one younger sister, so he would take my mom, my sister, and I to campus when we were really young. And he would show us where he lived, like what his dorm was around the campus. And he brought us there so much that I kind of felt a sense of community early on from a young age. And I was like, wow, I really love it here. And, once college is a topic of discussion in my life, like I think I would love to go here. And while this was all happening and I started to play lacrosse, early sophomore year of high school, I decided, why don't I give it a try and play lacrosse there? Because I obviously love the university. I want to go there. But if I could play a sport that I absolutely love there, like it would be a double win for me. So I, like anyone going through a high school recruiting process, like sometimes you get looks from some schools, but they don't happen to be what you are looking for. And Villanova wasn't a school that, reached out to me, but I was like, why don't I just give it a shot and reach out to the coach and express my love for the school and my love for lacrosse. And from her and I communicating for a little bit, and she was able to come see a couple of my club lacrosse games. We just clicked and things worked out, and I was lucky enough to receive an offer. And this was an amazing point in my life. Yeah, because not only did I love the school and I was like, wow, I'm going to a school that I absolutely love, but I get to play a sport that I love on top of it. So that was how it all started at Villanova.
And I think that's how we all feel when we get, accepted into school to play the sport. Yeah, the sport you love. It's always an amazing feeling. Yeah, and that's a great story. The
Right.
fact that you grew up there and were around it the whole time. I feel like that's very
Hmm.
rare. So that's awesome.
Right.
So just getting into, kind of a little bit of a deeper stuff. I
Hmm.
know from our earlier call what you
Right.
struggle with. So why don't you tell everybody listening, what you struggle with, when did that start, and kind of the implications of that in everyday life, and then we'll get into what it means, to be a student athlete struggling with that.
Yeah, definitely. So I have generalized anxiety disorder. I was diagnosed when I was 13 years old, so I was in 8th grade. And basically, the signs were this started early on in my life. My dad actually has the same disorder, and
Hmm.
his blossomed or started when he was in college, actually. So it was kind of the opposite for us. Mine started at a very young age, and his started when he was in his 20s. But I would say that the earliest signs of this generalized anxiety disorder started in kindergarten when I would go to school every day. This started in elementary school also, but I would go to school and I would have these, what I didn't know what they were at the time, panic attacks at school for whatever
Yeah.
reason. Like I just felt uncomfortable in class, or the fire alarm went off and it scared me or whatever. And 3rd grade, I was deathly afraid of my teacher for some reason, and I would come home and cry about it every day. And like, I look back on it now and I'm like, this is so bizarre that this all happened, but I was, 8 years old. So those were some of the anxieties or triggers that happened to me at that time. But as I got into middle school, I developed this serious phobia of fainting. I had this fear in every single class. I would sit there and just kind of think about, oh my God, like, what if I faint? Like, who's
Yeah.
going to help me? Like, am I going to wake up kind of thing? And I would, eventually convince myself that I was going to faint. I never have in my life, still to this day. It's crazy. But I would, make myself lightheaded, get very hot, and then that would, lead to another panic attack. And
Yeah.
I just want to say that a lot of people deal with panic attacks differently. It could be, being angry. That's how my dad deals with it. He just gets into this very dark mood. It could be, isolating yourself from other people. But for me,
Yeah.
it was hyperventilation and crying. So I would just work myself up. And I would say, along with this phobia, which was the main one, I had separation anxiety from my parents and my house. So this, later made me feel like I couldn't even go to school. And as soon as I would wake up, I would have this panic attack and be like, Mom, I can't go. Like, she's like, Carly, like, it's going to be fine. School's fun. Like, you're going to see all your friends. Like, let's just get you
Yeah.
ready, whatever. Trying to convince me at a young age. But so she actually had to escort me into the classroom every single day for my entire 6th grade year. And then I transferred schools. And when I went to 8th grade, this was on top of an underlying disorder that I had to deal with meeting a whole crowd of new people,
Yeah.
meeting new friends and people who didn't know what I was going through. And obviously, at a young age, you don't want to have to explain that because you're not
Yeah.
sure if people are going to understand.
Of
But
course.
so this, happened throughout 7th grade and 8th grade. And then one day was, I think, the breaking point for me where at 13 years old, I realized, something is wrong. Like, it's more than me just being like a young bratty preteen. Like,
Yeah.
it's my everyday routine shouldn't have to be this affected by, something that's going on inside of my head. So, this particular day, I snuck my phone into class and I had a panic attack and I ran to the bathroom and just stayed there and called my mom. And I was like, Mom, you need to come pick me up. Like, something's wrong. I can't do this anymore. Like, I want to go to the doctor. So I went to my parents at 13 and was like, can I go to the pediatrician? Like, I think we need to discuss medication. And
Hmm.
they were so supportive. Thank goodness. Like, they
Yeah.
have been two people that have really, made dealing with this disorder, doable. And my dad is on medication as well. So I tried Lexapro. And I've been on it ever since. To this day, I still take it. And I'm lucky that it only took one trial run to
Yeah.
find one medication that worked. Because, like, you probably know and have heard from other people, like, some people go through a couple medications and deal with side effects before they find the one that's right for them. But that was the one that worked for me. And I was lucky, and it changed the way that I, felt every day. While I would still have my anxious waves, it wasn't affecting my everyday routine, getting up and going to
Hmm.
school. So high school was a much better time for me. Although, high schoolers are still a little immature. Like, I felt like I was growing in a mental
Yeah.
state, getting a good grasp of what my disorder is and trying to figure out ways that I can, go through a school day without having a panic attack. So, um, I don't know if you want me to talk about it in college or we want to pause for a second, but then obviously that went through college as well. But I can talk
Yeah.
about that once we get into the sports more.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing that you had, like, from the very start, you had a support system, right? People that you knew
Mhm.
understood and accepted you. I think that was super important, probably in making you feel like it was okay, you know?
Right.
Am I
hmm
right in saying that?
No, definitely. I think even I think it's hard because I talk to a lot of people, and I'm so lucky that I had two parents that were welcoming and understanding and not afraid to, go to the doctor and
Yeah,
present their child and be like, she needs help. But there's a lot of people who don't feel comfortable going to their parents,
exactly.
and they're not accepting for whatever reason. And, that's okay. That happens too. And I think that there's other ways you can get support, whether that be from your friends or your grandparents or cousins or a therapist. I was going to a therapist twice a week
Yeah,
from sixth grade to high school. And that was awesome because it's someone who has no bias on your life and can, really understand and devote their time to you and only you. So I think those are other ways that you can get support.
absolutely.
hmm
So you deal with this through adolescence, high school, you get to
hmm
Villanova. I know just from being a student athlete, the days are long, right? You have school,
Long.
then you have
hmm
hours and hours of sports on top of that. How did
Right.
this affect or enhance what was going on, mentally?
So I think that it was different every year of college. I think freshman year obviously is such a change for everybody. And if you have a type of mental illness or disorder, I feel like the change that you're going through just heightens all those emotions. So obviously playing a sport, I had to figure out this daily routine from waking up at 6 a.m. and going to lift and then making sure that I have enough time to eat something before I go to my 8:30 class. And then after your 8:30 class, you might have another class before you have to like sprint across campus to get to the stadium in time for
Yeah.
practice. And obviously there's repercussions. You probably have them too if like you're late and you'll get your entire team in trouble. So while it was, worrying about your routine and what you're getting done, you also didn't want to, mess up because then it could affect someone else or your entire team. And I think that, then you go to practice. And while you were just worrying about all this schoolwork you had to do, now you have to completely switch your mindset to focus on what's going on at practice. Whether you're learning a new play, you have to do this motion right, whatever that is. And then when practice is over, you have to flip the switch again and get like homework mode on. And then, like, by
Yeah.
the end of the day, you're absolutely exhausted. And it's like, what just happened? I just blacked out for the entire day. Like, and then, you go to bed and you're like, wow, I have to do this all over again the next day. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of, I think student athletes are so mentally tough in the sense that it's a lot of like mental switching and you have to really like
Mhm.
switch your mindset very quickly, but that can be very stressful for people, and I've totally been there. And I'm sure you've been there too. Like,
Oh,
sometimes it
100%,
just
yeah.
yeah, sometimes it just gets to a point where you're like, it's great to be in a routine, but you're like, I just need to take a second and breathe, like,
Absolutely.
for myself. hmm
Yeah, especially when, like, you're struggling or yeah, it seems like sometimes it just doesn't, like, turn off, like, and you need just,
hmm
like, a second to breathe.
Exactly.
So I one thing I related a lot to in your little blurb that you sent me
Hmm.
was the quote unquote pressure that builds as a
Right.
student athlete when you have teammates relying on you, when you're very hard on yourself, you're self-critical. Can
Hmm.
you talk a little bit about what you meant by the pressure? I know you talked
Hmm.
about watching your teammates go through the same thing. So what was
Hmm.
that like? Explain what it looked like, how it presented itself, what it felt like.
Right. So I think that pressure comes from like 8,000 different directions. I don't even think there's
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
definition. First pressure, I think, is from yourself. Sometimes I would just get so frustrated at practice because, I couldn't do a move right or something, or I really wasn't getting a grasp on a play, or I had a bad practice. And then you leave practice and you just feel so bad about yourself. Like,
Yeah,
I just wasted 3 hours outside and, I don't feel like I got better. And, there's other people on the team that are progressing and I feel like I'm not on the same page with them. So I think comparing yourself to other people is kind of hard. And I know everyone says, like, you should never compare yourself to anyone else. But when you're an athlete, I mean, you're essentially practicing to get
yeah,
playing
that's
time.
all
Like,
you do.
right. It's a tryout all the time. So I think that goes into the stresses or the stressors of self pressure. But that also comes with, pressure from coaches, pressures from strength trainers, or even like your athletic trainers. If you're injured, like it's on you to go into the training room and
Yeah,
get treatment. And that's another thing that you have to find time to do throughout your day. So I think, obviously coaches are going to be tough on you. It doesn't matter what like division 1, 2, or 3 you play. Like you're a student athlete, you're a college athlete, like it's a completely different game from high school. And I think that sometimes we take things so personally sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that. And
hmm,
sometimes we're told that, don't take everything so personally. It's just practice. We just expect better of you. But, we're kids. Like it's so hard
yeah,
to take
uh-huh.
everything that our coaches say with a grain of salt because we're still growing like mentally and we're still growing as an athlete, and the pressure from coaches is hard. And that goes back to self pressure because then you question yourself, like you question your self-worth as an athlete or even as a person. And
Yeah,
um some people even might feel pressure from their parents, to be on the starting lineup and have to play. And while you're feeling pressure from yourself and your coach and now your parents who aren't even at school, it's like where's like the positive recognition from
yeah,
someone that I need, so I think that's, and also academics. I think or coaches and athletes sometimes forget about academics, like even
yeah,
especially in season, you have to maintain good grades or else you can't even play the sport. And,
yeah. Well, it's
so I
easy
think
to
that's
forget
all
about
of,
when like all you're doing is when all that everybody's focused about on is like sports and the game coming up or the practice that you need to
right.
do or all the installs you need to make, all the plays. It's hard. It's
Hmm.
easy rather to forget about the fact that like these are student athletes that have an entire other part of life that they need to like
Right.
focus on. Like they're here for
Hmm.
the education and stuff. And then also, yeah, I feel like the whole being self-critical thing is such a double-edged sword because
Hmm.
you know most successful people are incredibly self-critical. That's like
Right.
why they improve and why you get to the spot where you are. But also at the same time, it's like it can take a serious toll on you if it goes too far, if you're not able to
Hmm.
keep things in perspective. And that was always something I struggled with was keeping things in perspective. Like, oh, like I had a horrible day of practice. I suck. I'm worthless. What am I doing? Like it would
Right.
that was like,
Exactly.
and it was there was no like I was very bad at being objective and going like, "Oh, well, everyone has bad days of practice." For me, it was like, "No,
Hmm.
like this means everything. Like this is
Me
so
too.
bad."
Me too.
Um, yeah, I feel like so many people that happens to, and it sucks because I don't know. There's really just like no one teaches you how to deal with that. Nobody really talks about it either while you're like growing up and while you're in youth sports. It's not. I
Right.
feel like it's not an emphasis or not something that people like understand really.
Right. I think back to what you said that sometimes, professional athletes obviously are self critical of themselves to an extent, but I think, awareness and having awareness of what a healthy level of self criticism is to
Yeah.
make sure that you're bettering yourself. But like you said, it can get so ugly at times that you just are constantly hounding yourself and making yourself seem so like you're not good at something. But when reality, like
Absolutely.
you're playing a sport at a college and oh my God, my dog. you're you're playing a sport at college and a million people would kill to have your spot, but like your coach chose you for a reason. And I
Yeah,
think that's so hard to grasp sometimes. Like, yeah, she picked me for a reason, whatever. Like, but it's like she's right and your coach is right and these people are right. Like, you worked so hard to get to this spot and you have to kind of give yourself some props sometimes. Like, I've been saying
absolutely.
a lot, it's okay to be proud of yourself and show it. Like, it's not, that doesn't mean you're being cocky. It doesn't mean you're being, I think it's healthy to give yourself, some props sometimes. But I think that you're right.
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely
So
okay to
yeah,
give yourself props. It's just like, yeah, it's hard to remember that
hard.
that's necessary. Yeah.
Hmm.
So we've talked a lot about on the show. I've talked a lot about with my guests injuries. I know that you
Right.
told me you had a pretty serious injury. Was it your ACL? Correct.
Yes, and fun fact, actually my surgery was 2 years ago today.
Wow. Happy
Yeah,
anniversary.
may the fourth be with you.
That's hilarious. So I was horrible mentally dealing with injuries. What
Right.
was it like for you?
Yeah, so I until this happened, I never broke anything. I would have kind of more like the tedious injuries. I would deal with,
Yeah.
back pain and back injuries, tendonitis, oh my God, shin splints, like the ones that you can't really fix, but they just like come and go and
Yeah.
you have to.
Hmm.
So those type of injuries, I feel like are so mentally tough to deal with because it's like, it's not getting better, like,
Hmm.
and it's completely stopping me from running and like where I might not even be out of breath, like my legs freaking hurt and there's nothing you can do about it other than ice and, rest. But
Yeah.
when can you rest? You can't rest unless you're,
Yeah.
but so, I actually first real injury, I would say I tore my ACL with 3 games left in my junior season, and this was so crazy. It was one of those things that I was like, oh, I've never had to deal with a broken bone. Like I never ever thought that I would have to deal with a torn ACL.
Yeah.
And it's such a crazy injury that's happening to so many people, and there's so many reasons to why it could happen, the type of cleats you're wearing, or oh, are you playing on turf or grass, was it contact, was it non-contact? And I believe this so strongly that it was a result of my mind not being fully healthy.
Really.
A lot, yeah, a lot of times I say like healthy mind, healthy body, and I
Hmm.
totally believe that this was an outcome of me not being fully mentally stable. Junior year was probably the hardest year of lacrosse for me. Um, I dealt with a lot of self-worth issues
Hmm.
and I took the pressure from coaches very very seriously and to heart, and I kind of felt like this was a year that was very negative in my life. And unfortunately some people will go through this and it's normal, it's okay to admit that this wasn't the best year for me. But I think that in a weird way this saved me from, stopping playing lacrosse, because I was at the point where I was crying every single day, whether it be during practice or after practice or having to run off the field and go collect myself in the bathroom. And this is when I was depressed, I think, at school. And I told my parents, I'm like, I'm at the point where I don't know if I can do this anymore. And I said the words like, I want to quit.
Yeah.
And it sucks for parents who are, sometimes your biggest cheerleaders, and they know what you're capable of and you've been so strong for the past 3 years. And my parents are like, what? You're going to throw it all away after 3 years? But it's like, mom and dad, like, I know that, but mentally it has done such a number on me. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do it for another year. And I think that this injury was like a sign from God to tell me, Carlye, like, don't do, like, that is not the right decision. Like,
Hmm.
you love sports, you've been a sport junkie your entire life, like, and
Yeah.
I love lacrosse and I miss playing the game so much. And And you know what? This injury, I had to stop and think to myself, like, I had a decision to make. Am I going to have the surgery as soon as I can and rehab for a year and so I can get back to playing in time for senior year? And, that is the decision that I made because, like all of us, we're very competitive people. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to finish my rehab in time for the first game senior year. And unfortunately, a year from when I tore my ACL was, like 3 games. It was going to be 3 games into my senior season. And I was like,
Yeah.
there's no way I'm sitting out a game. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. So I had the surgery as soon as I could. Sorry, my freaking dog. Daisy, come here.
Okay.
Go. Oh my. She's going to sit and moan the whole time. But so I had the surgery as soon as I could, and I was like, this sucks also because I can't get a summer internship where
Yeah.
aside from all the sports happening, there's like my career path that I need to work on. And it's like, do the summer internship and don't rehab and don't play your senior year, or do the rehab, sacrifice the summer internship and like be ready to play. So I rehabbed all summer. I actually kind of liked the rehab in a weird way. I loved my physical therapist. He was awesome.
Yeah.
And it's awesome because you get one person to just help you heal. And I
Yeah.
think that I was talking to one of my friends, this is a little side note, but I was talking to one of my friends about having sports psychologists on campus. And I think that it would be a great resource for these athletes. And, some colleges have one sports psychologist and talks to the team, which is great because the team can, get therapy together. But my friend said, look, like, for your ACL, are you going to go to a physical therapist with a group of 35 other people and heal that way? No, you need one person to rehab you by themselves and, devote all their time to you. So just like that, athletes should have one sports psychologist for a team that, they can go to personally because
Yeah.
their problems or their stresses might be different from, people on their team. And I think that is really important in the sense that if you like, did you have a sports psychologist?
We didn't. I always,
Yeah.
yeah, when I was really, so that's funny because I really started struggling junior year. Then the
Mhm.
last guest I had on, DeMarte, that's when he really started struggling. And now, yeah, that's when you really started struggling. I feel like, I don't
Mhm.
know, I don't want to like look too deep into it, but that's just such like a turning point in your life when you're finally like, at least for me, that was when I was like, oh, like I'm already halfway through college, like I'm
Mhm.
about to go into the real world, and then plus like the added sports pressure, I feel like it just gets to people a lot.
I feel like that, like people say the sophomore slump, but it's like the junior slump where you're almost completed your career, but you're at such a crucial point in your athletic career where like the routine, everything that's going on. And I feel like
Yeah.
that gets to people sometimes.
Yeah, so I really
Um,
wish that we had a sports psychologist that
right.
would have. I mean, if we had somebody there that was like dedicated to talking to athletes about this stuff, I would have, I mean, felt so much more comfortable finally like
Mhm.
breaking down my barriers because that's their job, like that's what they're there for. And clearly
Exactly.
if they're
Exactly.
on staff, they're there for a reason. They're there because athletes
Mhm.
struggle. And that would have like completed the whole cycle in my mind that made me realize I was okay and that it wasn't like it was normal for me to be struggling. But that
Right.
just
Because
wasn't like it wasn't there.
yeah, and I agree with what you said. Like, it would kind of make people feel more normal, like you just said, going to this one person every day because, oh, like other people on your team are going to this one person.
Yeah.
And, it's a cycle and it makes sense. But, yeah, no, back to the injury. Like, if I had somebody to talk to even throughout this injury, and I give so much support to, or so much credit to the athletic trainers that I had,
Hmm.
that we had on campus, because without them, I don't know what I would have done. Like, they
Same.
were the sports psychologists that like we didn't have. And I think
That's so
that
funny
they
that
get
you say that. Yeah.
right, like they deserve so much more credit. Like, I tell them, I'm like, you're my therapist, like you're the best. Like, I can talk to you about anything, but it would be nice if they could do like they didn't have to worry about that. They could just
Yeah.
do the
That's not their
injury
job, you
prevention.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I can't tell you how many
But
times. Sorry, I just like I want to piggyback off that
No,
point.
go for
Just
it.
give a
Yeah.
little shout out because I went through. I mean, freshman year I tore my hamstring.
Oh,
Sophomore year
jeez.
I got a bad concussion at the end of the season and tore
Hmm.
my labrum. Junior
Oh
year
my
I
God.
sprained my ankle in preseason, and then
Hmm.
senior year I had a sprained ankle. Then I tore. I just
Oh my
destroyed my other
God.
ankle and had to get surgery. Yeah, I've had a rough go at things, but
Yeah. Well,
but
I'm sorry. Are you
oh
okay?
yeah. Yeah, I'm fine now. We'll see. We'll check back up on me in 15 years. I'll probably have the body of a
Yeah.
7 year. But
Me too.
my yeah, I can't tell. So my my athletic training staff have this like reputation for being like these hardos, like this like hard
Hmm.
external shell. Like people that don't know them, they're like they're like mean, you know. But
Okay. Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've like cried to my like the head athletic trainer in
Oh,
his office,
please.
like
Y-
just because like after my
Please. Yeah.
concussion, after my shoulder,
Hmm.
or like I found out my senior season was over, and they were the
Hmm.
best support staff. Like I still talk to shout out Matt, shout out Becky. I still talk to
Hmm.
Matt every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were incredible. But like if we had somebody there that was their sole job, they didn't have to worry
Right.
about taping everybody up for practice, or
Hmm.
it would have been really really helpful. I think to a lot of
Right.
people, just me, or not just the people that were like struggling the most, but even people who were just having like kind of bad days, just to go talk to
Exactly.
somebody about it, you
Yeah.
know. But that
No, I
didn't
agree
exist.
100%.
Did you have a
No,
sports?
and no, so we towards the end, I think it was like my junior year, we had one woman that we met with probably like I would say in season more, but like a few times over Skype.
Yeah,
And it would be my entire team in a
it was a
room and
group
we would
thing.
talk to her. Yeah, it was a group thing and it was great because, we could, whatever, teams go through like whatever they go through in season. Like obviously there's some like heightened emotions and it was awesome to talk to one woman about what our team is feeling and what we could do to perform better on the field. So that was amazing, but it's not the same as going
No,
me by myself and going to talk to you as a sports psychologist to let you know how I'm feeling personally, because
exactly.
how I'm feeling could be so different than how everyone else is feeling. And
Yeah,
you can't really share that in this group setting. You can't just really be
yeah,
like, people be like, this is a group thing, like,
yeah. So just I feel like this is a perfect segue. So when you were in
yeah.
these lows, when you had these like really hard times in your career, or yeah, in your
Hmm.
sports career, um, there was you had no sports psychologist to lean on. So we had
Yeah.
to figure out different ways to get support. I know in your blurb you talked about your teammates being your support system. So what was that like? Like how much of a difference did that make knowing that your teammates had your back?
Yeah, so I think it's so important to, form relationships and not even be teammates, like a family. Like we always said
Yeah.
that we were a family, these are my sisters, like those are your brothers and kind of thing.
Hmm.
And outside of practice, even, sitting in the locker room and just talking to a couple of the girls or having like team meetings, I think is such an important part of, you know, forming that relationship and helping other people to feel open about, talking about something that happened at practice and this is how it made me feel. So, and even talking to one person, like I think that these girls on the team, like I felt comfortable going to every single one of them and talking about something that I wanted to talk about, but it was reciprocated, like
Yeah.
it wasn't a one-sided thing, like where I would tell them how I was feeling and they would listen. Like they would feel comfortable telling me how they were feeling and I would listen. And it was awesome because we would just try and like help each other in whatever way. Like we're going to go to, like, we would say to each other, like, we're going to go to practice. We're going to have a kick ass practice. Like, we're going to smile the entire time. Like, no matter what happens, like,
Yeah.
and it like makes it fun. Like, it makes it fun at
Yeah.
times. And like, I don't know, it's those little things like that. But, aside from my teammates, like I said, the athletic trainers are just incredible people.
Hmm.
I like aspire to be like them when I'm older.
It's
I
awesome.
think, just even like your athletic director or like coaches or other coaches, I think that wherever you can find somebody that's willing to listen and, talk to you and understand what you're going through, I think that you just have to, it's hard for people to do, but go looking for that person and put yourself out there and, express to them. Because I'm sure there's somebody in the athletic department that would be more than happy to sit down and talk with you,
Yeah.
because we are their athletic department, like without the student athlete, it's like,
True.
but yeah, so that I feel like teammates and trainers and like, you see these people every day. So you start to form relationships with them. Like I still talk to, some of the trainers and obviously my teammates, like we're going to be friends forever. But
Yeah.
I think that it's so much more than talking about sports related anxiety and sports related stressors. Like these people are your friends for life. So I think it's just awesome what they did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
So now that you're, done with Villanova and done being a student athlete,
Right.
your goal, I know, is the same as mine. You have a YouTube channel dedicated to it, and it's
Hmm.
breaking the stigma that surrounds mental health in sports. What are the risks of this? Are you afraid of, being judged for doing this? And also, how can the listeners find you if they're interested in hearing more from you?
Yeah, definitely. So this was honestly born out of quarantine. I had wanted to make a YouTube channel for a long time now. And I've always been an advocate for mental health. I like to
Hmm.
post about it a lot on my Instagram, just to, show people that it's okay to talk about it and it's okay to admit, that everybody has mental health and it's important to keep it sound and healthy.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to do with this YouTube channel. I thought that it would mean even more to film myself, talking to these people so they could
Hmm.
see that this is real, like this is me. And I can't tell you how much, love and support I've gotten from people from my high school, people from college, like people who I didn't even know. I had a couple, one girl DM me from the Maryland women's lacrosse team. And I'm like, if you know women's lacrosse, Maryland is like amazing. So I was like, holy, like, this is so cool. And like,
Yeah.
she's thanking me for making this video. I'm like, I look up to you. And like, I'm so glad that she saw it. And,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to create this network between people and this community that it's okay to talk about these things. But like you
Absolutely.
said, that comes with a risk.
Hmm.
And a lot of those thoughts went through my head before I even made the channel. And I kind of said something in my first video that I made talking about my disorder. And I said, look, like, I know some people are going to have their opinions about what I'm doing. Like, you're on YouTube. That's so weird. But, you know, I'd rather help people. And where there's a risk, there's a reward. And I hope that, this encourages other people to,
Yeah.
talk about it in the future. And not only talk about it, but understand what other people are going through and understand that, mental illness and mental health is a real thing. And I just hope that it'll grow the conversation like you're doing with this podcast. But,
Yeah.
I have unfortunately received some, negativity surrounding the channel. And I think that, that's just important to realize that if you're going to put something out on the internet and for everyone to see, just be prepared that, although not everybody's going to agree with what you're saying, and that's completely fine. Just as long as people can understand what you're trying to say and what the bigger
Yeah.
message is, I think is important. So, um, and if you'd like to check out my YouTube channel, um, it's just Carlye Maita, CarlyeMaita. And we talk about all things mental health. So it doesn't even have to be sports. It can be with relationships and anxiety and depression and how to cope with these things. And it's still a baby channel, but there will be more
Yeah.
videos to come.
Same.
Um, but yeah.
Perfect. So I always end interviews by asking the guest
Mhm.
to say something to someone who's struggling out there that might be listening, encouragement, advice, just a 30-second thing for anybody who might be struggling.
So I think acceptance is such an important word. When I finally accepted that there was a deeper root to what I was feeling with my disorder, and you don't even have to have a disorder, even if you're feeling anxious at one point or you're feeling sadness, I think accepting that it is okay to feel this way will open up a
Yeah.
mindset and a door for somebody to come and help you. And another thing, um, some people are scared to ask for help because, they don't want to put their problems, and it's okay to, it's okay to ask for help because you might talk to someone that's feeling the exact same way as you. So never be afraid to talk about what you're feeling. Don't be ashamed or feel like you're weak or there's something wrong with you because millions of people are going through the same thing you are. And especially during quarantine and what's going on now, I think that talking about it is so much more important right now because, you could save your life and you could save someone else's life. And I think if, as long as you can help break the stigma, people will, be so much more confident in themselves. And I think just it'll create a bigger sense of community surrounding mental health. So I think just accept who you are and don't
Hmm.
be afraid to admit something, and you'll find positive outcomes because of that. So yeah,
Perfect. Absolutely.
thank
Well,
you.
Carlye, you were fantastic. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming on.
you. Thank you so much for having me. This was so awesome. And I wish you the best of luck with the podcast to come. And anytime you want to chat again, I'm always here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And that is going to wrap up episode number 3. Again, thank you so much to Carlye Maita for coming on. It's funny, after we stopped recording, before she hung up, she was, apologizing for how long it went and how long she was talking. But that's what we want. We want open dialogue here. That's the whole point of this. I'd much rather have a 45-minute episode where everything that someone says is valuable than not letting them say enough and only having it be 20 minutes or trying to cut them short. So this was incredible. She had so much good advice to share to those who are struggling, and such an amazing story just from her own personal point of view. So thank you again for listening. I'll see you next week. We have another episode lined up next week that I'm super excited about. So remember, Mind Matters. I'm signing off. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, our website, and YouTube. Please subscribe so that you can keep up with us. Thank you.